NGD, and we all know what that means. New gear day. Ooh, look at this. The new Profoto D30. Let's check it out. All right, so this is the Profoto D30, and this is an AC powered strobe. There is no battery pack on this at all. I have the spec sheet pulled up here. It looks like it's a 500 watt second strobe, 11 stops of power from 0.5 all the way to 500 watt seconds. I use the Profoto B series, which uses the battery pack. I'm gonna just leave this out for comparison because I think they're probably not made for the same audience, but in many ways they're kind of comparable. This thing can recycle, it says, at 0.8 seconds at full power, whereas the B series, you're gonna be stuck at like 2.2 seconds if you're firing at full power. So definitely a faster recycle rate here because it runs on AC power. You can see here the D30 is a little bit taller. It's the exact same circumference, so same profile if you're used to Profoto lights. And the back screens look almost identical as well. The Profoto D30, it says, has a boost mode, a freeze mode, and an eco mode. The flash durations look about the same on these, so I don't know there's really an advantage there. It says here this gets 11 stops of power. The B series is 10 stops, so it's not more powerful. They're the same power at full power, but you can actually dial this one down one more stop, which could be useful if you're just needing a little bit of fill or you shoot product photography or something like that. It also has a PC sync port, which a lot of companies have gotten rid of. If you have older Pocket Wizards or you're trying to do something wired up that's a little funky, sometimes it's nice to still have that. Another new thing with the D30 is you can now remove the frosted glass front and actually replace the flash tube if it breaks. So before you had to send this into Profoto, and I know a lot of people prefer to change their own tubes, you can now do that with the D30. The modeling lamp on the D30 looks like it's a little bit more powerful and it has a larger white balance range, so you can really tweak that a little bit better. And the final thing that's different between the two of these is the D30 has a more robust outer shell, so you can mount much larger softboxes and modifiers to the D30, where with the battery-powered B series, you really can only use up to 3x4 foot softboxes or 4-foot octoboxes. You can't use 7-foot octoboxes or anything that's super heavy, just because the mount is not nearly as sturdy as what's on the D30 series. So the biggest advantage it looks like the D30 has over the battery options is the recycle rate. It's just way faster, and if you shoot catalog work where maybe you're gonna be shooting thousands of articles of clothing with a model and you just need it to be accurate and recycle really quickly, this might be the strobe for you. Or if, say, you do product photography and splash photography or something like that with a lot of movement and you just want to be able to get into a rhythm and just knock out a bunch of shots, sometimes the battery-powered strobes are going to leave you shooting a little bit slower than you might want. Now, I'm comparing these with the spec sheet because I just got this unit. There are some things that look to be about the same. Even though the B10X Plus has a battery built in, with the battery and the mounting bracket attached, these weigh almost exactly the same. And finally, let's talk about price, because that's something that everybody likes to talk about with Profoto. The B10X, it is $17.95, or you can upgrade to the B10X Plus, which is $21.95 at the time of making this video. The D30 falls right in the middle at $19.95. So the D30 and the B10X Plus are exactly the same power, but the D30 is just a few $100 less, but it runs on AC only. So it looks like the D30 is kind of a replacement for maybe the older D1 or D2 series strobe. Those strobes were much heavier and larger than this, so I think you're getting a more compact form factor here. I used to own the D1 series. I sold those and bought B series because I feel like I like having the battery and taking those out on location, and I don't shoot as much high demand studio work as I do on location. So for this video, what I really want to do is I just want to set up a real world photo shoot to see how the D30 performs in a situation where I might need a faster recycle rate. I have a model coming over here in about 2 hours and I need to build a crazy set, so let's jump right into it. All right, so here we are in the studio. I have set up the most ridiculous setup I think I've ever built in here. The theme that we came up with for this photo shoot is kind of dreamy, fantasy. It's kind of like a fragrance ad. And so we have all of this fabric everywhere, and it kind of matches Jennifer's clothing. For lighting, I have the D30 here placed in this crazy zoom rod. I've been using this for the last few weeks. It's a brand new Profoto modifier. And I heard somebody explain it as a modifier for your light modifier. And let me explain what that means. What we have here is the RFI 4-foot octobox, and it's got the silver interior. And normally that would be the one light modifier. You mount the light in the back, it's shooting forward, and then you could put some baffling on front of it, or you could use it like I am, where it's just shooting wide open. but you're kind of stuck with that one look, and then you can move this closer or further from your subject. But what the zoom rod allows me to do is it allows me to mount the light inside the light modifier, and then you'll see here in a minute, I can actually move this close to the back and lower the profile that this creates. Or if I want, I can pull the zoom rod out and illuminate the entire 4-foot octabox. One thing that's really interesting about this type of light modifier is it's going to create hard light that's going to be much harder than a normal softbox. And because we have all of this fill coming in from this light modifier, you're gonna have harder shadows than a softbox, but they're also gonna be filled in a little bit and not quite as dense. Now, of course, if you mount this a little further in, you can still put the baffle in front of it and use it as a traditional softbox, but in my opinion, that kind of defeats the whole point of this. So let me tell you a little bit about the camera settings. I'm shooting with the Sony A9 III. I'm gonna be shooting at f8, which is going to give me a lot of depth of field. If you can't tell yet, the fabric is gonna be really close to the camera, but it's also going to be really far back in the studio. And while I can't get everything in focus at f8, it's definitely gonna give a more studio-esque type of look. So for the last several years, I've been using battery-powered strobes where you can still plug them in and use them in the studio, but one big disadvantage is the recycle rate just isn't that fast. When you're using any battery-powered solution, it's gonna fire a full power flash maybe once every 2 seconds, which in many cases isn't a big deal, but if you're trying to just knock out a bunch of shots and capture that perfect moment, sometimes it's a little slow. So when I get Jennifer to move and start getting in the flow, and then we turn the fans on and some of the fabric's gonna be moving, I'm gonna be able to shoot at full power or half power and get a shot every second, every half second, and it's gonna just make the whole process so much more seamless. And most importantly, it's not gonna interrupt the flow between Jennifer and I. So for these first shots, I'm gonna be positioning the D30 really close to the back of my 4-foot octabox. It's gonna produce a smaller looking light, but then maybe even have some fill on the edges. Let's go ahead and take some images with this orientation, and then we'll be able to pull the strobe further away and see how that changes the light quality. All right, so we've gotten some great images with the flash pointed really close to the back. It's going to be a little bit harder of a light source, but now let me go ahead and move the D30 further away, open up the softbox so that it's a little softer, and see how those results look. One thing that's interesting about the way they've designed this zoom rod is that you can mount any normal flash head or D or B series flash on this mount right here. And then as long as you have a light modifier that uses a speed ring, you can set up the speed ring here on the back and then use it with any light modifier. So if you have a softbox or a strip box or an octabox like this, you should be able to get the same sort of effect. I can see having this permanently set up in your studio, and then you have some variety with one light modifier at all times. Another thing that's nice with this strobe is the D30 connects the same way as all the other flashes. You can use the air system, and I can use the Pro controller right on top. So it works seamlessly with all the other flashes that I'm used to, which I really appreciate. One advantage that the D30 is going to give me in this situation is that because it is powered by AC and it has a cable, I'm going to have much faster refresh rates. I've been doing some tests, and I can fire a full power flash every 0.8 of a second. So that is incredibly fast, and as you'll see here in a minute, you can actually get a really cool stop motion kind of effect. If I just fire 30 shots in a row, you can see all of the movement, and it just gives me so many options, maybe even too many options. All right, so now that I have some images shot both with the D30 pushed into the octabox as well as pulled further out, let's put these images on the computer, look at them side by side, and see how the zoom rod affects the light quality hitting our model. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. I've lined up two images that I took back to back with the two different light modifier positions. This top image I'm gonna be calling hard because essentially I've pushed the strobe further into the light modifier, which produced a smaller light source and therefore gave me a harder light. The bottom image I'm calling soft light because the light has been pulled out and it's creating a softer light. If I toggle these on and off, zoomed all the way out, the smaller light source, it definitely has more highlights, has more contrast, and it just is a little bit more punchy. If I toggle between these two, you can definitely tell which one is punchier and which one is softer. Let's go ahead and zoom in to 200%. And for these two images, I've done my best to align all of her facial features so that when I toggle them on and off, you can really see the effects. If we look at the catch lights in Jennifer's eyes right here, you can really tell a difference. This is going to be the softer light with the larger light source. And when the strobe is pushed further into the softbox, the light modifier becomes much smaller. You can really tell a difference. This is going to be an easy way to determine which light is which when you start toggling between these two. Now, if we look at the hard light source, there's a few things that I notice. One is there's some shadows caused by the eyelashes here. And there's also a really predominant shadow cast by her nose right here. It's nice and sharp, and you can really see that defining feature. If we go to the softer light, you can see that shadow has been very diminished. It's much softer, and all of the shadows cast by the eyelashes, they're almost completely gone. Another difference that I can notice is the highlights on her skin. With the hard light, you can see the highlights are a little bit brighter, and when we use the zoom rod to illuminate more of the softbox, her skin almost looks like it's been retouched or softened without doing anything at all, just with the lighting itself. If we come down here and look at the shadows cast by her hair, the shadows cast by the softer, larger light source, they're still there, but you can't really see them as well. Whereas with the hard light, it's leaving a much more defined pattern on her skin. Zooming back out on this image, there's no doubt that you could add contrast to the flatter, softer image and probably get it to punch like the smaller light source. But if you want those more defined shadows and you want that more fashion look, especially on the skin and the shadows being cast by the facial features, that's gonna be near impossible to replicate just with a Photoshop curve layer. So I think this is a really interesting tool because if you wanna go for a softer feel, all you have to do is pull your light out a little bit and you're gonna achieve that pretty quickly. And then if you wanna get a little bit more fashion-friendly looking image where everything pops and just looks a little bit more like a high-end commercial shoot, you could push the light further in. You're still gonna get that fill from the softbox, but the stronger, harder part of that light is gonna be tucked further away, and it's just gonna give your images a little bit more pop. So there you go, my first overview of the new Profoto D30 and the zoom rod, which is a light modifier that I've used with other type of lighting kits, but I've never been able to use it with Profoto. I'm really excited to have a tool like this because this is the easiest way to change your light modifier without having to build a bunch of softboxes, have a bunch of softboxes. I think, like I said in the video, if you just mounted a large octabox with this and kept it installed in your studio at all time, this is going to be a lighting style that I go to quite a bit, and it just gives me a lot of versatility. That being said, it is a little big and cumbersome to where I don't think I would take this out on location, but for me, this is a cool little tool to have in my studio, and I'm glad Profoto finally released this. If you guys enjoy videos like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel below. Also, if you're a photographer and you want to join in on our monthly photo contest, head over to fstoppers.com/contest. Lee and I run a series called Critique the Community, where every single month we pick some of the community's best photos, we critique them on our YouTube channel, and the top 3 winners win some really cool prizes, everything from strobes, cameras, lenses, photo editing software, and other cool little photo accessories. Definitely check that out. And if you're a photographer and you want to up your game, head over to fstoppers.com/store where you can check out our full-length tutorials that we've produced with some of the best photo teachers in different genres like headshots, landscape photography, architectural photography, product photography, studio photography, macro photography. There's literally something for everybody, so definitely check that out and use the coupon code below to save 15% on any of your purchases. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you really soon.